If you're not a fan of the current hard seltzer trend, then you should probably stop this video now because that is what I'm making and it all starts now. Welcome to Big Monster Brewing, the Anvil Foundry edition. I am Matt, and today I am making probably the easiest thing you can make on the Anvil Foundry, apart from hot water. But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, like, share the video, and leave any comments, questions, or whatnot below. Still no notes on this. I think I got it. Hard seltzer, as you probably know, is a trend in adult beverages that seems to be either something you're okay with or you adamantly despise. It's like the hate for it seems so extreme, and then the people that don't hate it are just like, it is what it is. I guess I fall into the I'm okay with it because I certainly do not despise it or hate it. It's just if I don't want it, I'm not going to drink it. That's what it comes down to. But one important thing that I did find recently with this trend and being able to home brew it or make it at home, I'm not quite sure if brewing is the right word, is that it's an opportunity to open the hobby of home brewing, or at least introduce it to a lot of other people that probably aren't aware you can make something like this as well at home. People know you can make wine, they know you can make beer, they may know you can make cider, but with this hard seltzer being a fairly new trend, it's been out there for a little while now. A lot of people that are fans of hard seltzer might not realize you can make it at home, and that is the catalyst of why I even made my first hard seltzer. There was a benefit recently in late end of March this year. It was to benefit a dog rescue shelter, and my homebrew club got invited to pour. So we wanted to think, what could we make that's outside of the normal beers to let people know this is something you can do on your own. And hard seltzer seemed like a great opportunity to introduce the idea of homebrewing to a lot of people. And I did. I made my very first hard seltzer, and it was a huge hit. It went so fast, it brought up so many questions and started so many conversations that from that angle alone, hard seltzer in homebrewing, to me, so far, is a good thing to help keep this hobby moving forward and growing. And that alone, to me, was worth the effort to learn. The side effect of that is that all my friends that got to try it at the festival, along with all my friends who didn't get to try it, that heard about it, have now basically demanded that I make it again. And I am, and that's what this video is about. Since I'm going to make it again, and it is so easy to do, and it's maybe something not everyone knows they can do at home, I went ahead and filmed the process so I could release a video and show how easy it is to make this trending beverage on the Anvil Foundry. So like with every video on this channel, we start with the recipe, and that recipe is 3 pounds of corn sugar. That's it as far as the fermentables. That is what we're going to add to the water. That is what the yeast are going to convert into alcohol. But there are some more things we're going to talk about in making this hard seltzer. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the water. I'm making 2.5 gallons of hard seltzer on this 6.5 gallon Anvil Foundry. And to do that, I start with 3 gallons of spring water. Spring water is a bit of a departure from the other videos that you've seen here. Usually I start with distilled or RO water. So I have a nice blank slate and I can build my water profile up depending on the style of water I'm making. That's not necessarily the easiest way to start a hard seltzer. When you start with a distilled or reverse osmosis completely stripped water, without adding malts and hops and the other adjuncts you would with a normal beer, it's not going to get the essential nutrients and minerals from those ingredients that a normal brew would. Again, you can add them yourself, or you could start with something like spring water, which has almost everything you need apart from the boost of yeast nutrients we're going to give in the end of this process. So for hard seltzer, I go right to spring water, no adjustments, and just start right there with that. I did mention yeast nutrients, and we're going to need a lot of yeast nutrients for this, more than you would add for a normal batch of beer of the same amount, even a high gravity beer. And again, you can research and come up with your own blend and add that directly to the process or to your brew day. Or you can buy some pre-mixed and pre-measured yeast nutrient blends. And that's what I'm doing. My go-to right now and for the foreseeable future is the proper Seltzer blend from Omega. That is going to go hand in hand with the yeast that I'll be using, that I'll talk about here in just a minute. And it comes pre-blended and measured for 5 gallons. Since I'm making 2.5 gallons, I measure out half of the amount of packet by weight, add that, and save the second half of the packet for later use. In fact, for this particular brew footage that I'm using today, this is the second half of the package of yeast nutrients that I had left over from my very first test batch. So to start making the hard seltzer, I add that 3 gallons of spring water to the Anvil Foundry. I start it up and I set the temperature for 180 degrees Fahrenheit. I also use the recirculation pump to get the water up to temperature a little quicker. Once I reach 180 degrees, I add the sugar and I stir it up really well. And once it's stirred, I take a pre-boil gravity reading. My final goal is 1045 and I'm at 1044. I am going to boil for 10 minutes and that should take me up to that one point of 1045, but even if it doesn't, 1044 is close enough, and that is what I'm moving forward with. So to get to that boil, the next step is to set the foundry to boil. And once that boil shows signs of starting, I add my immersion chiller and my stirring spoon to sterilize them. I start a 10-minute timer for this very short boil, and I just wait it out. And at the end of the 10 minutes, I add the yeast nutrients and again stir it up really well. Once that is well stirred, I cut the power and I chill the wort down below 90 degrees. And that is exactly where I want the temperature for this brew to be, because the next thing we're going to talk about is the last very important ingredient, and that is the yeast. Like any yeast for any brew, you have a wide selection, and it all comes down to what elements you want that yeast to bring to the beer. In this case, I want it to be a really high attenuating yeast that leaves almost no flavor and aroma characteristics at all when it's done. So my choice right now for hard seltzers and for the foreseeable future is Omega's Lutra yeast strain. Not only is it highly attenuating, it is super clean, and it has the added benefit of being able to ferment super fast. In fact, this seltzer is going to be done in 5 days. With the brew cooled, I transfer it to a 3-gallon carboy, pitch the yeast, and wrap it up in the warmest room in my house and keep that temperature above 85 degrees for fermentation. The one thing I didn't take a video of is that in the bottom of that wrap, I have a 12-inch kombucha heating pad that I've connected to an Inkbird to help maintain that 85 degree temperature goal that I am shooting for. And with it being in the warmest room in the house, it's pretty hands-off. In fact, it's entirely hands-off during the entire fermentation process now. Once the fermentation is done, I add some gelatin to fine it and cold crash it for 48 hours. After that 48 hours, I transfer it to a keg, and at this point, I could carbonate it and serve it. It is ready to go. But for my hard seltzers, I like to add some flavoring. And for flavoring, there is an almost endless amount of possibilities. You have a very clean slate, a very blank canvas, whatever you want to call this seltzer, and you can add few purees, extracts, fountain flavorings, and probably things I haven't even thought of yet. In this case, I am going to add the Olive Nation Black Raspberry flavoring to it. It's the same flavoring that I used at that event, and by popular demand, that's what's been requested again. So that is what I am adding at kegging. So the big question is, how much flavoring should I use? And there is no standard answer. It's all dependent on taste, first of all, and what you're using. I did go through a bit of a process to figure out what I wanted to add, or what amount I wanted to add, either way, how you want to say it, to this seltzer. And I started by making up a faux seltzer. I took a 4-ounce cup, filled it with seltzer water, and then put a splash of vodka in there just to get that kind of alcohol angle on there to figure out what taste I was going to have. Then I dropped in the flavoring a few drops at a time until I got the flavor profile I wanted. And in this case, it was 8 drops of this particular flavoring. Now I need to look at some notes here because I got some math. And so from there, I did everything by weight, and I weighed the 8 drops of that flavoring, and that came out to 0.23 grams. So I know that I made a 4-ounce mixture with those 8 drops of flavoring. So I divide 320 by 4, 320 being how many ounces are in 2.5 gallons, and I got 80. I then multiply 80 by 0.23, and I see I have 18.4 grams of flavoring by weight to add to the seltzer. So knowing that this flavoring is a little thick, I actually weigh out about 20 grams, knowing someone's going to stick to the cup, put that into my keg, purge it with CO2, then do the transfer, and shake, rattle, and roll, maybe not rattle, but shake and roll that keg for as long as my arms can stand it to mix that thick syrup in with the seltzer. From there, I carbonate it with the Blickman Quick Carb with a really high CO2 volume, about almost 4 volumes of CO2 for this, and then we are ready to taste it. It is tasting time, and you just saw in the video I poured it from a picnic tap. I do have that same glass I poured right here. The picnic tap was hooked up because we've actually started enjoying this seltzer already. In fact, yesterday we had a garage sale with some friends that did request this seltzer. Came over, it was super hot. It's now, I guess, officially the 10 months of summer in Central Florida. So this was quickly tapped and enjoyed. But I'm still going to talk about it, even though having had quite a bit of it so far. The color, the color does not come across this camera. The camera does this color no justice, is what I should say. It is a light, almost lavender color. Of course, it's from the flavoring. It's I'm sure it's I know it's an artificial coloring, but it just adds another character to this. And with the idea being this was to introduce the idea of being able to make hard seltzer at home to potential new home brewers, it just added another selling element to the idea. I mean, we weren't selling in terms of taking money. We're trying to sell the idea of home brewing to people that haven't done it before, and it worked out great. Didn't know it was going to do that when I did it, but when I did it, I was like, just couldn't come out any better. It's crystal clear. There's a lot of condensation on this glass, but with my, I don't know if it's again coming across from the camera, it's crystal clear. It's effervescent. I took a specific video shot that you probably already saw of the effervescence coming from the bottom of the glass. It's still happening. Again, don't know if this camera's picking it up at this angle, but as far as how everything came together, the aroma, it's all that black raspberry flavoring fruit, not an overwhelming alcohol, no yeast character at all. It's just, it smells like that blackberry. There's that distinctive, this is a adult or a beverage for adults and not for kids smell. I guess that is the alcohol. I'm just going to get right to no, it's a seltzer. There's no head retention. Carbonation is still, I can still see it just pouring off the bottom of the glass, but let's get right to taste. The flavoring is not overwhelming, which is what I went for when I measured out the amount I wanted to use for it. It's just enough of it to give it a flavor. It's not sweet. It's not sour. It's just a nice berry flavor. It's, again, it's black raspberry. There's a little bit of dryness to it because it's attenuated out so well, but it's not completely dry. And refreshing is a big thing. It was really refreshing yesterday in that crazy heat in our driveway during that garage sale. I don't know why I took another drink because there was nothing else to point out. I just guess I wanted another one. It's a fun thing to make. And people that might not like beer or ciders or whatever you're brewing might appreciate you taking the time to make it. It doesn't take long. Certainly doesn't take long to ferment. And it's fun to play with the flavorings. I have, I actually bought, oh gosh, I think 10, if not 10, really close to 10 flavorings to try. And there were some other contenders of pina colada. There was strawberry. There was even a cotton candy that we kind of thought maybe was a little too much to introduce people to, but we might try it again. And there's a ton of other flavors available from everywhere. Hit the mic. From everywhere, not just Olive Nation. I'm probably one of the only Brew Tube channels that was not offered a sample from Olive Nation, but I did learn of them from other ones, and I was happy to buy them myself and try them out. And that's just the start. So it's not going to be something I make all the time, but I'm going to add it to my rotation. This channel kind of started with talking about our Halloween party each year. I'm going to put a seltzer on this year. I don't know what flavor. Blood orange maybe sounds appropriate. Maybe I'll do a candy corn tincture like I did for a beer one year. It's just something to add to involve more people, and I think most importantly, show people what you can do with home brewing at home. I don't think a lot of people realize how easy this is, and I'm talking about people that don't home brew. And if it gets more people into this hobby and keeps the hobby strong, I don't see anything wrong with that. And the bonus is, I don't mind drinking this. I'm going to finish this probably off camera and save the rest for my friends, and they'll be happy, and that's always a good feeling as well. So that's it. So regardless of where you fall on the hard seltzer scale, whether you hate it, you think it's okay, or maybe the other extreme, you love it, it's easy to do. This was fun to do, and a lot of people are enjoying it, and it may have even brought more people into the hobby. So I think it was more than worth doing, and I think I would call this brew a success. So with that, I will go finish this, maybe outside, enjoy it in the heat, kind of really bring everything together. But let me say, of course, thank you for watching. I'll be back with another episode soon. I'm not quite sure where I'm going in these future episodes because I'm rebrewing a lot of things you've already seen for competition. So I kind of have to think outside of the box a little bit to keep this channel going. I know it was a long bit between this video and the last one, and that's because I was brewing things you'd already seen. So I'm going to have to think a little bit on that, but I do intend to be back with something sometime soon, and I'll say it again. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in that next video.